Yes, this is Mike Fish, and this is lesson 3 on our short-term rental training under analyzing a property for potential short-term rental profitability. I'm obviously in central Minnesota. So let's talk about this a bit. I certainly the lake makes a huge difference, no doubt at all about that, and I've got separate videos on that. But we're talking about the physical property itself right now. And as I always say, we sell an experience more than we rent a property. How that yard, how that lot is set out, the potential to it is huge. So having a larger lot, for example, we've got we've got a number of them that allow dogs. We've got some that have a separate fenced in area for the dogs. People absolutely love it. But having the room for games, running around, playing, again, we've got about 20 outside games that we encourage folks to get, everything from, beanbags to spike ball to a volleyball game. There's so many games, and the yard can be a huge draw, a huge factor. Aside from the size of that yard, of course, we're looking ideally for, a fire pit area, a nice hangout by the beach. And that brings me to the next factor. The beach is huge. Now, I've got great rentals that don't have a beach. So again, none of this is absolutely necessary, but I would probably say on the average property, having a nice little swimming beach is a difference of about $100 a night in the summer. So if you're looking at what is the ideal situation is having a swimmable shoreline, maybe a little bit of a beach there for the smaller kids, and having swimming there is the difference of several thousand a year very easily. As I mentioned, the fire pit, having seating area enough outside, that matches your sleeping area inside, as well as decks, patio, outside dining. I tell you, having a deck and stringing lights on a nice summer night is just magical. So let's also talk about the lot. So having a wider lot, having some privacy can make a huge difference when it comes to your reviews, and it comes to not having issues with neighbors, which is a totally different training. But having that lot so they have a little bit of privacy, a little bit of a room to run is absolutely phenomenal. I have a more modest property, for example, that I'm thinking of that has a massive lot, 2-3 outbuildings, tons of room to run, and people absolutely love it. So again, the yard, the size of the yard does matter. I've had properties where we've slept 13 to 15 on a 50 to 75 foot lot, and it gets a little tight, and it gets tight for the guests and for the neighbors. So getting a wider, as wide a lot as you can afford or possible is certainly ideal. Certainly having a dock setup is huge, so that's something to consider, particularly how deep the water is at the end of that dock. We've had some places where, when the lake's a little bit lower, it goes down to a foot deep and people can't even get their boat in. So that is something to consider. If you do have the ability to put in even a modest boat ramp on the property, that is huge. Very few people have them. We have a few. People love them. So certainly that shoreline, the orientation to the shoreline, sunrises or sunsets are kind of ideal, but keeping in mind what the view looks like, the panoramic view is huge. The next thing to consider when you're kind of considering the lake and you're considering outside issues are the recreational activities on the lake. And so again, we're going to handle this in different videos, but getting a lake where there's some fishing, lakes that have a restaurant you can pontoon to is huge when it comes to short-term rentals. Basically, if there's the more for them to do, the better. And ideally having a few outbuildings, having some space to run is huge. But again, all this can be on a smaller lot, but the bigger lot, absolutely the better. Thank you.